The requirements for a comprehensive training program are shown on this graph. It should be on-site with your company team members, with adequate facilities and adequate equipment, visual aids, etc. We're talking about a management training commitment of, say, 3 hours a week with 25 to 30 people to a class. The complete training program would take approximately 20 weeks. The program must be administered by an experienced creative instructor, skilled and interactive in adult communication. Attendees have to be treated as equals, people who are capable and want to make contributions. The instructor establishes the learning environment. He provides the environment for the exchange of ideas. The training program normally starts with the company leadership. These are the people, the managers of the company, the supervisors, and perhaps people in the company who, by virtue of their personality, are in effect leaders in the company. The training program should be tailored to company processes. Company examples are used where possible. This requires a 1 or 2 day assessment period. The instructor will visit the company, meet the people, understand their situation, get some ideas of company processes and the company's concerns. Workbooks are made available to all the attendees at the beginning of the program. Providers of these instructional services can be extended education departments of colleges and universities who have experienced business-oriented instructors under contract. Consulting organizations are also active in this area. However, the fees for consultants are prohibitive for the smaller companies. The state of California has a unique program which could serve as a model for other groups. Businesses, the state government, and colleges have gotten together to train various companies in TQM concepts. Commitments are made by all the parties involved. The state of California pays the instructor fees to colleges from employment taxes received annually. Businesses assist in curriculum development. The receiving company's commitment is to provide 30 employees for a weekly 3-hour period for a 20-week period. Attendees must pass state requirements such as wages, employment permanence, etc. An example of the topics covered and a recent weekly schedule for the 20-week CalCIP training program appears in your print package. The schedule gives you an idea of the time it takes to teach the various topics covered. The second major benchmark required for effectively implementing TQM is to place into operation an organizational structure to drive the company's change process. After the 3rd or 4th week, the Quality Steering Committee is organized. We want to establish various focused subcommittees. The subcommittee chairmen are automatically members of the Quality Council. On this graphic, a steering committee mission statement is shown. It lists the responsibilities of the steering committee. These include to develop and implement a quality strategy, to review TQM plans for consistency with the business strategy, to resolve the issues which arise as change comes about. These issues have to be dealt with expeditiously to keep the TQM program on track. We also want a forum to review the quality team's improvement ideas. Coordination and cooperation for implementing these ideas is provided by the Quality Steering Group. The Quality Steering Committee also has the responsibility of providing the environment for change in a company by developing equitable reward and recognition systems. Quality steering committees are made up of people who are subcommittee chairpersons. There are about 6 or 7 subcommittees that some companies, depending upon their size, will set up. For example, on an ongoing basis, you can have the Education Committee, whose responsibility it is to develop and administer the company education plan. You have a Cost of Quality Committee, whose mission it is to develop a cost of quality system. You also have a Recognition Committee, to develop a uniform, equitable company system for rewards and recognition. There's also a communications committee, a quality action committee, and a commitment committee. Mission statements are provided for each committee. A typical quality steering committee organization chart is shown in your print package. There's a lot more that could be said about these committees. It doesn't necessarily mean that for your company you have to set up something that's as involved as this. It depends upon the size of your company. Smaller facilities, say of 50 to 100 people, might decide to combine some of these committees. When you're first starting the TQM process, the steering committee meets once a week for, say, 60 to 90 minutes. After the TQM process is well underway, it's possible to cut back the meeting schedule to once every 2 weeks. Please note, nobody misses a TQM meeting. Meeting agendas and meeting minutes are available promptly. The third major benchmark for implementing a TQM process is to develop a company mission statement. The purpose of vision statements is to make sure everybody understands what the goal of the company is and what we stand for. It's a unifying force. Let's look in your print package at a vision statement of a client company located in Laguna Niguel, California. It is comprehensive. Delphi is committed to being the premier manufacturer. Delphi is committed to quality and continuous improvement, to providing an environment for achieving personal excellence and growth, to providing a corporate culture that treats customers and business associates as friends. This vision statement is posted on all walls, all over the plant. Everybody understands that this is what Delphi stands for. The fourth major benchmark in the TQM process is to expeditiously apply the training employees receive in this 20-week program to continuous improvement efforts. In TQM, problems are solved on the shop floor, as opposed to the more traditional ways of solving problems where ideas may come from the shop, go up the various levels of the hierarchy to the top, and then come back down again. With the time required for this process, the ideas often are forgotten, nothing happens, and people lose interest in coming up with any future ideas. It's a completely different approach to problem solving. We have to show people how the team approach actually works. One statement made in a recent Apex convention in San Francisco was, you cannot have continuous improvement in a company without having employee involvement. Managers can't do this by themselves. The process experts of a company are the people who have the detailed knowledge. They are the people out on the shop floor who are involved in the company's processes. That's why we have the challenge in TQM. Again, that word challenge, of getting people involved in the TQM process. We talk about team definition, what a team means. We are talking about working together to optimize the use of company resources. We're talking about a commitment to a common mission and obtaining both organizational and individual objectives. A question that frequently arises in forming teams is, how do you decide what the team is going to be working on? This is discussed as you go through our training program. How do you select the most pressing problem to be addressed? The criteria often include ability to correct within time and resource constraints. You don't want to take on problems that require allocating millions of dollars for new equipment. We want to solve problems that yield the highest payback in the shortest amount of time. Several approaches have been used to identify these problem areas: defect measurement analysis, process analysis, identification of major causes of waste, and determination of the major elements of preventable quality-oriented costs. The next three graphics in your print package show how we determine the cost of quality. Our traditional cost accounting systems do not identify how much money we are wasting on items that are quality-driven and preventable. Cost of quality techniques are used to identify how much is spent per year on these items. we are finding that many U.S. companies are spending up to 30% of the product cost of shipments annually on tasks resulting from poor quality. This results from not doing it right the first time. These sums are never shown on traditional accounting reports. Yes, we can easily identify reject costs, scrap costs, and customer return costs. Other major preventable cost of quality elements are not so easily identified. Our employee turnover, complaint handling, etc. Once you identify something as a significant quality cost in your company, you quantify it by using estimates. A worksheet for a cost of quality element appears in your print package. Add the individual costs up from each worksheet to arrive at the total cost of quality per year. A recent client company in the medical device industry found that they were spending something like 30% of product cost on items that were preventable. This added up to over $10 million per year. The major elements that contributed to this total became the focus for continuous improvement team efforts. Within 6 months, significant savings were achieved on problems that the medical device company had lived with for years but did not realize the magnitude of the waste. Returning now to the concept of quality teams, there are several behaviors that promote team development. These include beginning with clear team mission statements and the establishment of team procedures and goals. People who work on teams should be trained in teaming to make sure that the time they spend on a team is effective. We have to train our employees so they can move quickly through the various stages of team development. We must use systematic techniques for solving problems. We must constantly evaluate ourselves to see if we have an effective team. Personal growth occurs among team members as the team develops. On this graphic showing the various stages of team development, there's a forming phase, then the storming phase. The honeymoon is over. This is when the people begin talking frankly about certain problems. Eventually we arrive at the norming stage, when we start to make effective progress. Finally, we reach the performing stage. In your print package, you are provided with an example of a team report card. How are we doing as a team? We can assign a facilitator to the team. The facilitator's role is to ensure a healthy team process. The facilitator is not involved with team deliberations. He is more interested in the process, how the team is getting there. Team members require training in systematic problem solving, defining the problem, the diagnostic journey, the remedial journey. We provide workshops during the training program to give employees hands-on experience with problem solving and using various techniques. Practice is provided in the use of flow diagrams, brainstorming Pareto diagrams, fishbone diagrams, data collection, etc. Here's a typical cause and effect diagram in your print package. Such diagrams help to organize brainstorming efforts. We collect much data in many companies that we do not use. We also do not collect data we need. As a result, many important decisions are based upon opinions. With our current emphasis on meeting production quotas, we often don't have time to analyze the data we have. The point is that until you have data as backup, you're just another person with an opinion. Decision makers cannot commit company resources to improve conditions unless we actually have hard data to indicate that there is a significant problem and that our solutions will provide significant benefits. The fifth major TQM benchmark is to develop the people skills and the technical skills of company employees. We're talking about training in teamwork, in leadership, in communication, JIT, SBC, problem solving, etc. After TQM is solidly in place, we recognize that all the people in this company are team members trying to achieve a common goal. Employees will grow in value if we constantly upgrade their capabilities. It will pay off handsomely. In the United States in the past 10 years, emphasis on training has greatly increased. Training facilities are now in place in most companies. The role of the trainer has been established and budgeted as an annual expense. TQM requires leadership. The TQM process requires strong leadership at all levels. Let's define leadership and how it differs from management. In some companies, people realize they're going to get in trouble if they question anything. You are not going to change unless you have strong leadership. Leaders deal with what could be rather than what is. Leaders are motivators who take you from where you are to where you want to be. Leaders demonstrate the desired behaviors all the time. Leaders challenge the existing processes. They prompt others to question existing practices. Let's take a look at some of the attributes of a TQM leader. How do they develop these skills? People skills development includes the time management techniques. If we can't manage time, we can't manage anything. The topic of how to effectively manage time is also presented in the training program. Communication skills are also extremely important. How many of you have people coming to your offices to solve problems which arise from a lack of communication? The two parties are coming at things from completely different standpoints. They aren't listening to each other. Significant quality problems can result. In these training programs, we talk about communication and the communications loop. The sender sends a message to a receiver. This can only be done if the receiver gives him feedback. If his management style is intimidating, the receiver may not give him that feedback. Therefore, there are going to be quality problems when the results come in. We will have to do it right the second time. Basics for successful communications are stressed to improve company communications during this critical TQM transition to a new culture. It's extremely important that we understand how to conduct effective meetings. How many of us have attended long meetings and once over, we wonder what was accomplished? There was no agenda, people came unprepared, we went off in all directions, etc. Requirements for an effective meeting are shown in your print package. How much of your time per year would be saved for more productive work if these requirements were followed? TQM relies upon meetings to resolve issues. Meetings must be effective. A chart showing the roles and responsibilities of meeting attendees appears in your print package. We must have agendas. People must understand their meeting roles. Meeting time must be used well. One of the most effective things that I have seen is when at the end of the meeting, somebody passes out a sheet of paper, goes to a flip chart and says, let's review this meeting process. Attendees list the things they liked about the meeting. They also list the things we could have done better. That's really feedback. It can be done anonymously. That is, people just fill out a piece of paper and turn it in. They don't have to sign their names, but it's directed at the person who's the leader of the meeting, so he knows what to improve the next time. It's the process of continuous improvement. TQM goes hand in hand with JIT. JIT is a system for reducing inventories, setup times, and production lead times. Emphasis placed upon production efficiency and quality output. A TQM company should watch their competitors, what their competitors are doing about implementing JIT. To be successful, TQM companies must be up to speed with the principles and implementation of the JIT system. An understanding of statistical process control, SPC, is another important skill for employees to have. It's hard to conceive of a company, TQM process, that does not use SPC to monitor and control processes. What is SPC? What is the objective of SPC? What are we trying to accomplish? We want defect-free processes that provide uniformity. What type of commitment to SPC is required from senior managers? Managers must understand this important process and expect and demand support from their staffs. If managers show no interest or have no understanding of SPC, they aren't going to get the cooperation or the interest of employees. We don't say that CEOs and vice presidents of finance are necessarily going to use SPC themselves, but they have to be knowledgeable about it, and they have to show an interest and motivate employees. Look at this example of an SPC chart. Notice how the process is tracked by the hour and day. Notice how we have upper and lower control limits to keep us from producing defects. We can determine when the process goes out of control and fix it before defects are produced. With the TQM process, you get impeccable customer service implemented over time, greatly increased profits, and the potential of operating at a level far above that of your competitors. With a 30 to 50% reduction in the cost of sales, a 70 to 90% reduction in lead time, and a potential 5-fold increase in quality. Think about what this means to you and your customers. With a significant reduction to lead time, you can respond to your customers quickly. With 30 to 50% reduction of plant floor space, you may not have to build additional plants to increase capacity. With significant inventory reduction, money is now available to support business growth. A significant reduction in cost of sales can increase the competitive edge of your firm in the face of increasing foreign competition to your domestic industries. This is especially significant now that duties are dropping by 40% in the 90s. If we set up our production lines with JIT techniques and use all the other tools of TQM, how long does it take to accomplish this change and reap the benefits? Let's take a look at an example. I think I picked this up in the recent literature. They show how Toyota started in 1960. Deming was over there in 1951 and began their training at that time. By the early 1960s, they were getting 1 improvement suggestion per employee per year. Only 39% of those suggestions, however, were adopted. That rate went on without much change for 10 or 12 years. And then it really took off. Not only did the number of suggestions increase to the point that they are now getting something like 40 proposals per employee per year, but they're getting almost an 80 to 90% acceptance rate for each improvement proposal. Your success level upon implementing TQM depends upon your commitment to the TQM process. You must have an effective TQM training and implementation plan in place, and management must be committed to following the course. In summary, we're saying that technology is available to increase the standard of living significantly in our respective countries. The TQM approaches are revolutionizing the ways we do business. But there are a lot of new technologies available to compress the time required to improve operations. That significant benefits can now be achieved in 2 to 4 years. That telecommunication systems are simplifying the process of technology transfer. Our program today is a good example of this. The infrastructure is available to assist you in starting a TQM process. That experienced instructors are available and proven TQM curriculums are also available. Joint college initiatives across national boundaries are a possibility. This is happening. Colleges could start working together on a train-the-trainer basis. The colleges and the countries involved could then send their experienced, trained instructors to those companies wishing to start the TQM process. It could also be a cross-border company initiative basis. There's no problem these days in moving instructors around or employing interactive satellite television. What happens at this point, though, is really up to us. We have to take the next steps to set the system in place. We have to cause this to happen. It's going to take creative techniques. It may take some local, national government initiatives. With NAFTA, some countries may want to go in this direction. My best wishes for a creative 1994.
Thank you for your presentation. Before we go on to the question and answering sessions, we'd like to hear some of your comments. The developments in information and technology have adopted a strategic role in the process of modernization and accelerated competitiveness in South America. How can an organization use and integrate these technologies in total quality management in order to deliver excellence in servicing the client?
We are going to face, in the 90s, tremendous innovation in our companies. The TQM process supports that innovation. What we're trying to do in the TQM process is prepare our company for actually non-stop innovation to actually get them ready for the change process. Let's talk about some of these CIM techniques. For example, we could talk about large databases, we could talk about electronic mail, CNC, robotics, all those kinds of things. We can no longer afford in our companies to let these approaches be handled by the whims of certain department heads. We really have to have a strategy within a company of what CIM, what computer integrated technologies are meaningful to our business. Somebody is going to have to play that role and responsibility, and then of all the possible alternatives we have for technical innovation, select those that are really imperative that the company gets involved with. So the TQM is completely compatible, but it does also require structured planning of what CIM technologies we're going to develop in our company.
Let me compliment what George was just talking about, because I think it's so important from a humanistic standpoint for the leaders of a company to make a commitment. See, the commitment must come from the top. Secondly, once that commitment is made, the leaders have to create a vision. And that vision must be carried out throughout the company so that every employee is very clear as to who the company is, where they're going, and how they're going to get there. That is, how they're going to achieve total quality. And that also brings up a third point, which is the communication factor. I think so many companies fail to clearly communicate their message to the employees. They assume that the employees are going to learn it by osmosis, and that just doesn't happen.
This new philosophy in management puts a special emphasis in the development of human resources in the company. It believes that the employee is not a robot or a machine which is manufactured just for production. This has to be taken into consideration. In your opinion, what are the characteristics, the fundamental ones of the human being, the employee, who is a person, an honorable one, and how do they have to be taken into consideration, these characteristics, and integrated in the total quality management?
Well, the first point is, I think you're right, that companies in the 90s and beyond are going to be judged not on what they produce, but rather on how they perform. The fact is that there is such competition now globally that most companies can produce just about anything in their respective industry. So the question is, how well do they produce it? How well do they perform for the customer's expectations? And I think in that vein, what has to happen is, number one, managers and leaders have to grow their people. We have tremendous human